When Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure.
This is why they're melting down over the new press secretary.
Elected Democrats are so steamed about Doge. LaMonica McIver says we are at war. Ilhan Omar says we might actually see somebody get killed.
It's unacceptable, the comments that have been made by these Democrat leaders, and frankly...
And on what happened on Friday night, the administration fired several inspectors general without giving Congress the 30-day legally required notification that they were being fired. I think only 2 were left at DHS and the DOJ. And then yesterday we saw several prosecutors, I believe 12, fired from the Justice Department who worked on the investigations.
So I'm glad you brought up taxes. Do you mind holding this so I can bring my receipts? I like to bring the receipts. So these are the tax priorities of the Trump administration that the president has laid out for members in that meeting today.
Today was the first press conference for Donald Trump's press secretary, Karoline Leavitt. And if you assumed she was a pretty white lady with a noticeable cross necklace, you were right. And of course she was Trump's press secretary during the campaign, but that was all about trashing Joe Biden. Now she's in an elevated position representing the White House, and she's here to talk about what the administration is going to do moving forward.
So now that the President Trump's policies are starting to take shape, how long will it take to cycle through and get some of the actual prices that Americans are paying to come down?
Prices at the store and at the grocery pump?
All of the above.
Across the board, sure. Well, the president is doing everything he can, obviously, to reduce the cost of living crisis in this country.
Today, everyone wants to know about the federal spending freeze that Trump's been doing. So what's that about?
We've seen the Biden administration spend money like drunken sailors.
Oh, boom! Drunken sailors! Everyone knows they spend so much money.
Boom. CNN's Kaitlan Collins thought she had a gotcha moment. But oh boy, did she walk straight into a buzzsaw. Karoline Leavitt didn't just clap back. She completely demolished her live on air for the whole world to see. From wild accusations to jaw-dropping receipts, Karoline flipped the script, leaving Kaitlan stuttering and CNN scrambling for full-blown damage control. And now the internet is on fire. Clips of the exchange are going viral, memes are flooding social media, and even CNN's own viewers are starting to question their credibility. So, what exactly happened? Buckle up, because this takedown is one for the books. But before we dive in, make sure to smash that like button and hit subscribe for more no-filter, drama-packed content. Did you subscribe? Legend. All right, let's get into it.
I was just in Karoline Leavitt's first briefing as the White House press secretary. Not a surprise, given it was essentially must-see TV during Trump's first term, that this room behind me, the James Brady briefing room, was essentially packed with standing room only around the chairs that you see on TV. I was in the front row, and a lot of the questions today focused on that memo that was issued last night.
White House was resting.
So you're confident that if they bring lawsuits against you, those prosecutors who were fired, that they will succeed?
We will win in court. When Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure.
Oh, shit! Didn't you see that coming, did you, old man, huh? Nailed your sleepy ass.
Are saying Trump doesn't have the legality to do this, but I asked Karoline Leavitt about that matter. She says it was the White House counsel who advised Trump that yes, he did have the authority to do so. Expect legal challenges to this, as there are a lot of questions about what it's going to affect.
All right, people, this one is a must-watch. CNN's Kaitlan Collins thought she was about to pull off a gotcha moment, but instead, she got completely wrecked. And the one delivering the smackdown? Karoline Leavitt. Now, this was supposed to be just another routine White House press briefing, but nope. Kaitlan came in thinking she had the upper hand. Spoiler alert, she did not. She threw out a loaded question, expecting Karoline to fumble, but Karoline she was more than ready. She shut it down instantly, flipping the entire exchange on its head and making Kaitlan look completely out of her league. And the best part? It was live, no edits, no spin, just pure, unfiltered destruction. But here's where it gets even better. CNN clearly did not want this clip making the rounds, but the second it hit the internet, boom! People started roasting Kaitlan, dragging CNN's credibility and straight up questioning whether she's even cut out for the job. And just like that, boom! Things went off the rails. Kaitlan Collins wasn't done yet. She pushed harder, grilling Karoline about inspectors general getting fired without the usual 30-day notice.
I was just in Karoline Leavitt's first briefing as the White House press secretary. Not a surprise, given it was essentially must-see TV during Trump's first term, that this room behind me, the James Brady briefing room, was essentially packed with standing room only around the chairs that you see on TV. I was in the front row, and a lot of the questions today focused on that memo that was issued last night, pausing all federal funding, essentially trillions of dollars that is spent by all of the government agencies that's already been appropriated by Congress, meaning the money is already there for these programs, but they put a pause to it, saying that they want to review it and make sure it fits in with the Trump agenda. It's caused a lot of confusion, and a lot of people are seeking clarity. Democrats on Capitol Hill are saying Trump doesn't have the legality.
But hey, don't just take my word for it. We've got the full breakdown coming up. Stay tuned.
On the freeze in federal funding, who advised the president on the legality of telling government agencies that they don't have to spend money that was already appropriated by Congress?
Well, as the OMB memo states, this is certainly within the confines of the law. So White House counsel's office believes that this is within the president's power to do it, and therefore he's doing it.
Okay, so they disagree with lawmakers who say that they don't have the power to freeze this funding.
Again, I would point you to the language in the memo that clearly states this is within the law.
And all that happened on Friday night. The administration fired several inspectors general without giving Congress the 30-day legally required notification that they were being fired. I think only 2 were left at DHS and the DOJ. And then yesterday we saw several prosecutors, I believe 12, fired from the Justice Department who worked on the investigations into the president. As you know, they are career prosecutors, therefore they are afforded civil service protections. How is the administration deciding which laws to follow and which ones to ignore?
So it is the belief of this White House and the White House counsel's office that the president was within his executive authority to do that. He is the executive of the executive branch, and therefore he has the power to fire anyone within the executive branch that he wishes.
And prosecutors involved in presidential investigations being let go. She tried to make it sound like a major scandal, but Karoline, not even fazed. She backed it up with legal precedent, shutting it down effortlessly. Kaitlan had nothing
to do that. He is the executive of the executive branch, and therefore he has the power to fire anyone within the executive branch that he wishes to. There's also a case that went before the Supreme Court in 2020, Scala Law LLC versus the Customs, Bureau Protection. I would advise you to look at that case, and that's the legality that this White House was resting on.
You're confident that if they bring lawsuits against you, those prosecutors who were fired, that they will succeed?
We will win in court,
And
yes.
did he personally direct this, given they worked on the classified documents investigation and the election interference investigation?
This was a memo that went out by the Presidential Personnel Office, and the president is the leader of this White House, so yes.
All right, let's break this down. CNN's Kaitlan Collins, who for some reason still thinks she can go head-to-head with conservatives, tried to trap Karoline Leavitt with a scripted, smug attack. Yeah, big mistake. Karoline didn't just shut it down. She flipped the whole thing on its head, dropping cold hard facts right in Kaitlan's lap.
Fact that Democrats have been labeling President Trump a to democracy for the better half of 10 years. Let's talk about how they have compared him to one of the worst mass in the history of the world, and that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden weaponized the court system and the justice system in this country against Donald Trump in an attempt to imprison him. He sat through a courthouse for 7 weeks this past year, and the Democrats were hoping he would go to jail for it. That is real political that has led to 2 heinous attempts on President Trump's life that, by the grace of God, he was able to escape, and he is here with us today. So yes, President Trump knows a little bit about political because he's experienced it himself.
And Kaitlan? Completely blindsided. But Karoline wasn't done. Oh no, she went straight for the establishment's foreign policy failures, exposing exactly why their talking points fall apart under pressure.
And talking about the tragic realities of war that Liz Cheney and her father Dick Cheney have got this country into is not political. It's talking about the reality of the foreign conflicts that the Washington, D.C. establishment have sold out young Americans to for decades.
Absolutely brutal. No wonder CNN cut away fast. They did not want their audience seeing Kaitlan getting wrecked in real time. But the internet never forgets, and lucky for us, the full clip is out there, and it's savage. So, what do you think? Was this Kaitlan's worst moment on air? The press room was completely silent. You could hear a pin drop. Kaitlan Collins, speechless. She knew she just got outplayed. Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt, cool, calm, and barely even trying. She even let out a little laugh because, honestly, this was too easy. And Kaitlan, full-on panic mode. You could see it in her eyes. She was not ready for the receipts Karoline just dropped.
Please, his opponents are saying to this very day the same rhetoric that led to those two attempts. The second attempted on President Trump's life echoed the sentiment that President Trump is a democracy. And if you're a deranged lunatic and you're mentally ill, you will believe that lie, and yes, you will take political like we have seen in 2 instances against President Trump. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris said that everyone who showed up to President Trump's rally.
Meanwhile, the internet is going crazy. Within minutes, hashtags started trending. Karoline owns CNN. Kaitlan Collins humiliated. Fake news CNN, and it only gets worse from there. CNN is in full meltdown mode. They know this is a disaster. Social media is flooded with clips of Karoline's epic takedown. People aren't just laughing at Kaitlan. They're straight up questioning if she's even fit for the job. And CNN's response?
At Madison Square Garden was that's despicable, dangerous, divisive rhetoric that is spewed by the Democrat Party every single day. And I'm so sick and tired of the media pointing the finger at Donald Trump and saying that he is sowing division in this country. He is not. The media is for pushing hoaxes like the one that you all pushed today, and the Democrat Party is for pushing lies about him. But the good news is Americans don't buy it. And that's why today President Trump is more popular than he has been since 2016, because people don't trust the media.
The internet.
Pure panic. They start scrubbing clips from their platforms, fact checkers are scrambling to rewrite the narrative, and the network is desperately trying to shift focus. Anything to stop the embarrassment from spreading. But it's too late. Conservatives are memeing the life out of this moment. Even liberals are shaking their heads, admitting Kaitlan walked straight into a trap. And the irony? CNN wanted to make Karoline look unprepared, but instead they just exposed their own incompetence. And just when you think it couldn't get any worse for Kaitlan, oh, it does.
You mentioned the inflation executive order the president signed, but egg prices have skyrocketed since President Trump took office. So what specifically is he doing to lower those costs for Americans?
Really glad you brought this up, because there is a lot of reporting out there that is putting the onus on this White House for the increased cost of eggs. I would like to point out to each and every one of you that in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure to the shore.
It's over. Karoline doesn't even blink. She drops a response so brutal.
Sure, egg prices increased 65% in this country. We also have seen the cost of everything, not just eggs. Bacon, groceries, gasoline have increased because of the inflationary policies of the last administration. As far as the egg shortage, what's also contributing to that is that the Biden administration and the Department of Agriculture directed the mass of more than 100 million chickens, which has led to a lack of chicken supply in this country, therefore a lack of egg supply, which is leading.
There's no coming back from it. And at this point, even CNN's own audience isn't buying the spin.
Are saying Trump doesn't have the legality to do this, but I asked Karoline Leavitt about that matter. She says it was the White House counsel who advised Trump that yes, he did have the authority to do so. Expect legal challenges to this, as there are a lot of questions about what it's going to affect. Veterans organizations, homeless shelters, disaster relief. There are so many agencies that are being touched by this pause, and really a big question. They say it's temporary, but the White House could not say.
One Twitter user summed it up perfectly. Imagine getting embarrassed this badly in front of the whole country. Karoline just ended Kaitlan's career in under 3 minutes. Even CNN's producers are probably shaking their heads behind the scenes. Kaitlan tried everything and still failed spectacularly. And just when she thought it couldn't possibly get worse, oh, it absolutely does. But this isn't just about one bad moment for Kaitlan Collins. This is about why the media keeps losing credibility. They twist facts to push their own narrative. They act like they're the smartest people in the room. But Karoline just proved how quickly they crumble under pressure. Now, CNN is scrambling.
The comments that have been made by these Democrat leaders, and frankly, they don't even know what they're talking about. Because President Trump was elected with a mandate from the American people to make this government more efficient. And for Democrat officials...
Kaitlan is humiliated, and Karoline? She just became more respected than ever. So here's the real question. Will CNN actually learn from this, or will they double down on their usual tactics? Either way, one thing is clear. Karoline Leavitt just raised the bar. And for CNN, that's a nightmare they won't be waking up from anytime soon.
They're melting down over the new press secretary.
Elected Democrats are so steamed about Doge. LaMonica McIver says we are at war. Ilhan Omar says we might actually see somebody get killed.
It's unacceptable to incite and encourage Americans to take to the streets is incredibly alarming, and they should be held accountable for that rhetoric.
All right, let's take a second to talk about Karoline Leavitt. Because at just 27 years old, she's out here going head-to-head with some of the biggest names in politics and media, including the notoriously hostile hosts of The View. Karoline Leavitt isn't just young, she's making history. She's the youngest White House press secretary ever, and was also a key spokesperson for Donald Trump's campaign. Back in November, when Trump announced her as his pick, he made it clear he believed she would crush it at the podium and help get his message across loud and clear as part of his Make America Great Again movement.
Press conference for Donald Trump's press secretary, Karoline Leavitt. And if you assume she was a pretty white lady with a noticeable cross necklace, you were right. And of course she was Trump's press secretary during the campaign, but that was all about trashing Joe Biden. Now she's in an elevated position representing the White House, and she's here to talk about what the administration is going to do moving forward.
When Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure.
Oh, shit! Didn't you see that coming, did you, old man, huh? Nailed your sleepy ass. But seriously, you get one. All right, so let's move forward. Today, everyone wants to know about the federal spending freeze that Trump's been doing. So what's that about?
We've seen the Biden administration spend money like drunken sailors.
Oh, boom! Drunken sailors! Everyone knows they spend so much money.
Trump described her as smart, tough, and an extremely effective communicator. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. Leavitt is a New Hampshire native with a background in communications and political science from St. Anselm College. But she wasn't just studying, she was already making moves. While still in school, she interned at Fox News and even worked in Trump's White House press office. She once told Politico that those experiences gave her her first real taste of the press world, and from that moment on, she knew this was the career she wanted. By 2019, fresh out of college, she was already working in the Trump administration. She started as a presidential speechwriter before moving up to assistant press secretary. During her time there, she helped prep Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany for some of the toughest press briefings and went toe-to-toe with the biased mainstream media. And after leaving the White House, she didn't slow down. She became communications director for top Republican Elise Stefanik, who, by the way, is now Trump's pick for United Nations ambassador.
And may I just point out, if you heard that type of violent, enticing rhetoric from our side of the aisle, from Republican leaders on Capitol Hill, I think there would be a lot more outrage in this room today. It's unacceptable, the comments that have been made by these Democrat leaders, and frankly, they don't even know what they're talking about.
In other words, Karoline Leavitt isn't just a rising star. She's already at the top of the game. Karoline Leavitt wasn't always standing behind the White House podium. She actually ran for Congress first. Back in 2022, she won the Republican nomination for New Hampshire's 1st congressional district. But in the general election, she lost to Democrat Chris Pappas. Her campaign? All about Trump's priorities. She promised to cut taxes, push for pro-business, free market policies, and was a strong supporter of law enforcement. She also took a hard stance on illegal immigration, calling for zero tolerance and pushing to finish the border wall.
Be a lot more outrage in this room today. It's unacceptable, the comments that have been made by these Democrat leaders, and frankly, they don't even know what they're talking about. Because President Trump was elected with a mandate from the American people to make this government more efficient. He campaigned across this country with Elon Musk, vowing that Elon was going to head up the Department of Government Efficiency, and the two of them, with a great team around them, were going to look at the receipts of this federal government and ensure it's accountable to American taxpayers. That's all that is happening.
By January 2024, she was back on Trump's team, this time as his campaign press secretary for his 3rd run at the presidency. And there you have it. Karoline Leavitt just put on a masterclass in handling the media, leaving Kaitlan Collins and CNN scrambling. This wasn't just a takedown. It was a wake-up call for the mainstream media. No spin, no edits, just pure facts, shutting down the narrative in real time. And with social media blowing up, one thing is clear. People aren't buying the media's tricks anymore. This wasn't just a takedown. It was a wake-up call for the mainstream media. No spin, no edits, just pure facts, shutting down the narrative in real time. And with social media blowing up, one thing is clear. People aren't buying the media's tricks anymore.